So my name is Sakina Bakharia. I am the president of the Barbados Association of Muslim Ladies. I have been involved in the organization for about 5 or 6 years. I had started as a volunteer, and then I took on the role of president. I relinquished that role when our founder returned, and then due to her work commitments, I have resumed the position as president of the Barbados Association of Muslim Ladies. BAML is the only organization of its kind in Barbados that caters to the holistic, professional, and academic and educational needs of Muslim women and girls. We are a safe space for Muslim women and girls. Our work is divided into 4 branches. So we look at community service, advocacy, educational and professional development, and social activities. So social issues such as GBV and mental health are things that we had discussed over the years, and we know there is a need for it within our community. Muslim women and girls have specific needs when it comes to religious and cultural expectations, and they would be hesitant to contact a regular hotline in terms of discussing these needs or seeking support. So the pressures with the COVID-19 pandemic kind of forced us into launching this initiative. We have 2 fully trained counselors and who are fluent in both Gujarati, which is the native language that many Barbadian Muslims speak, and English. And they would be able to respond positively to and cater specifically to what the needs of the Muslim women and girls here in Barbados are. With that said, though, we have received calls from males, and we have received calls from persons outside the community, but because our counselors volunteer their time and services, we kind of make sure that it's specific to the Muslim women and girls. Well, but calls aren't rejected. Calls aren't rejected, but calls are preferred to be from Muslim women and girls. We want to make sure that the trust and the confidentiality of persons who are calling isn't broken. So we know that we would have to gain their trust for them to trust us. So we want to ensure that persons know that when they call the hotline, the entire team of the Barbados Association of Muslim Ladies isn't privy to the information from the hotline. The counselors will deal with it on specific basis, and what is needed to be shared is shared. So we have had issues such as domestic violence, financial abuse, emotional abuse. Any issue that is related to women and girls in the wider community affects our Muslim women and girls as well. So we ensure that we can cater to their needs coming from a faith-based perspective, because faith plays an important role in how we reach out for support and what we would do. They use the tenets of the faith based on what they can do. What we want people to know as well is that by reaching out for support, you're not breaking the trust and the confidentiality of your community or your family. Islam's teachings encourages holistic healing, and these are practices that have been in place for centuries. So we need to ensure that these practices are encouraged from a faith-based perspective, and it is okay to call and reach out to help. It is better for the mental and emotional wellness of the female or the children, and it then has a domino effect on the family dynamics and the social and community outreach by reaching out for help, because when you help yourself, you can help others as well. Did have an increased need in social anxiety. There was an increased anxiety. Initially, we would have the lockdown, when we were under lockdown, the financial burden would be in place, because the restriction of movements would have made it difficult on the family, where many of the males would go, and the type of work they do is the itinerant trade and business, and they were restricted to their movement, so they were no longer able to go out and collect their income. And with that being said, even when they were allowed to collect the income, if persons were not working, if their customers were not working, they would not be able to make payments. So then this would have a domino effect on what the family's financial status would look like. There would be less of a disposable income. There would also be a struggle in terms of where the family members would share responsibility of an elderly or ill family member. That responsibility would be added to the female of the household where the person resides. It's homeschooling. Homeschooling would have been placed on the female shoulders to ensure the children understand and complete their assignments. This, along with everything else that the female normally does, would have been a strain on the mental health and wellness, and then it would be strain on family dynamics as well, because you're not accustomed to being in a home with people the whole day. Everybody has, and I know this is probably common to the whole Barbadian population. When you're not in a home or in a space with someone for over so many hours, it then becomes a challenge to navigate that as well. So with that, the financial support systems that we have in place within the community were strained. And then there are instances where it has picked up, but then we looked at the recent spate of the surge in cases recently, and the increased anxiety that has caused within the community, along with persons who were in isolation and that they would reach out for support. There would have been a spate of deaths in the community, and then persons, even those who are not affected by a family member, there would have been no one in the Muslim community in Barbados that would not have been affected by the loss. Because even if the person who died, and I think we've had about 7 or 8 COVID-related deaths, even if the person who died is not your immediate family member, we know them. The community is small enough that we know them, and many of us would have relationships or memories with these people. So it would have mean an increased need for grief support within the community as well. I don't think they've gotten any easier, because it has still, the burden is still there. So males may have been able to go back out to work, so maybe the financial burden has eased a bit, but then they may have been the offset of what would have happened when we were under lockdown. So maybe businesses are possibly picking up, but then the woman's role hasn't changed. She's still navigating the online schooling at home. She's still navigating, managing her duties and making sure these children are studying and learning and mentally well as well. Because it is a challenge on anyone to be spending hours in a home, and then your responsibilities, along with making sure that your children are doing the work that they're doing and then are coping, because children are social beings. They need the interaction. And the interaction has been taken away due to the pandemic and the struggles that we're facing. So it isn't, I wouldn't say we have shifted so much in that aspect. There's still struggles out there. But we need to continue making the conversation active and relatable for women and girls. The conversations have to come from a faith-based perspective. To ensure, even bouncing back from COVID or during COVID, that we understand that it is okay to reach out for support. You can contact persons. There are persons in the community that should be in place to be trusted to contact. There's nothing wrong with reaching out for help. We need to ensure that the women and girls know that you can't look after yourself, or you can't look after people if you don't look after yourself first. And Islam ensures that there's faith. We have faith. We pray and we fast and we give in charity, but we have faith to ensure that these things are tests from the Almighty, and we need to make sure that we are present and respond to these tests positively. So while it may have been an emotional burden on a human being, it has a long-term effect on the community, and we have to make sure we do what we can in service to the community. There's a gratifying feeling when you give in service to your community without looking for anything in return. So women and girls need to be looked at from that aspect. We need to break away from the cultural conversations. There are many cultural practices in place that are quite contradictory to the religious teachings. So we need to ensure that these cultural practices are slowly broken away from, and we adhere or we respect the woman from the faith-based perspective. The organization has embarked on training within our community. We recently completed some training with Muslim leaders, and it was the first of its kind where we were able to have males and females in the same space discussing a socially related issues such as gender-based violence. We hope to continue this training early next year, pending restrictions with the younger people in the community. And our advocacy, we're focusing a lot. We're kind of limited on social gatherings, but we're focusing our time on advocacy. So we're still very much active in terms of making sure these social issues, gender-based violence, mental health, discussing topics that are generally not discussed are continued, especially with women and children in mind.